I really try hard to get my team not to take the business too seriously. And half of the problem I find is people take it too seriously. And once you get into that state of mind, you start making bad decisions because you're very afraid. So keeping perspective is the number one. And whenever I'm really, really in trouble, I actually take a step back, and you can overcorrect and oversteer when things start going wrong. So actually, when things are really difficult, you're better to let go of the controls and observe and just calm down, because that company can steer itself. The biggest problem is overthinking and oversteering your business when it's in real challenging period.
Hi, I'm Nick Hague, and welcome to the World's Greatest Business Thinkers podcast. Will Butler-Adams is CEO of Brompton Bicycles and has a truly inspirational story of how he's built the company into one of the most iconic British brands in today's world. This is a fascinating story of how Will didn't just inherit a business, he inherited a legacy. He took one man's dream and vision and steered the company, balancing its reverence of its heritage with the boldness needed to innovate and grow. Under his leadership, Brompton has not only expanded globally, but has also launched game-changing products like the Brompton Electric, all while keeping manufacturing rooted in London and championing a model of responsible, purposeful business. So today, we're diving deep into his journey on what it takes to lead a heritage brand in a fast-changing world, and how he balances profit with principle, and what advice he has for entrepreneurs looking to build something that lasts. Therefore, if you're interested in marketing, branding, how to scale a business, and take your product to foreign markets, then this is the podcast for you. And if you like what you hear, then please do subscribe, as it really does make a massive difference to the show. Thank you very much. Welcome to the World's Greatest Business Thinkers podcast, Will.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I'm delighted to have you. And we'll talk a lot about Brompton Bicycles today. But I think to start off with, I mean, your name is synonymous with Brompton, but I want to talk to you, first of all, understand a bit about young Will growing up. I'm doing the research. I read an article where you described yourself as a failure at school. Now, I know school isn't for everyone, but were you interested in business, engineering, or were these things that came later to you in life?
I wasn't really interested in learning. I was interested in having fun and, getting outside, building dens, playing sport, causing mischief, but sitting in a classroom and learning anything was a bit of an anathema to me. What I did have was never enough money. So right from a very young age, there was never quite enough money, which I think was good work by my parents. So I permanently had to find ways to earn money. So my dad was in the pub industry.
Right.
So I got beer mats. I got my mum to sew beer towels together. We made bedspreads. I sold them. I sold beer mats. I mean, any way I could make money to have a little bit more. Work for dad in his business, helping out at Christmas, delivering stuff, you name it. So in the context of business, I realized I needed some money. And then when I got to university, I started going a bit more mad, and realized as we were all literally starting university that we were all about to rent a house, and managed to persuade my dad in a period of about 6 weeks to lend me 10 grand. And then in first year, I put 10 grand deposit, took an illegal mortgage, and bought my first house and rented it to my mates. And it went from there.
Yeah. Well, in fact, you just talking, then it took me a flashback many years to one of my friends on a squash team I used to play on. He had his own jacket out of beer mats. He'd sewn it together.
That's brilliant.
I'd never thought about that till just now. So yeah, quite a look it was.
Hell of a look.
Were you always interested in cycling then?
So even today, I would not say that I'm a cyclist. And our purpose, the whole reason that Brompton exists, is not really for cyclists. Because if you imagine somebody says, I'm a cyclist, that's immediately lycra, arse in the air, head down, cutting through the streets, which is great fun, but that accounts for maybe 4 or 5% of the population in the UK, probably less globally. What we're after is getting people onto a bike. Now, in the UK, let's say 5%, as I say, people are cyclists, but maybe 95% of people know how to ride a bike, but they're not. Now, why not? That's a big opportunity there, that 95%. And actually, most of them now live in cities or in towns. That's what we're after. So we're not after the cyclists who are there. We're after the people who know how to ride a bike and aren't. And that's a really exciting opportunity. And the thing is, when you meet Brompton owners, many of them were not cycling. They got a bike under duress. They were forced into it. The commute was tricky. They needed something that folded up. And then once they started, this thing changed their life. And they love it. And it's not, you're not wearing funny clothes. You're just on your bike. You're whizzing across town. You fold it up. You jump on the tube. You drive in. You pull it out the back of the car. You cut through when it's really inconvenient to be in a car. And that is freedom, and it makes you feel good. You suddenly find, I think I did 60 miles this week just whizzing about. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm losing a bit of weight. I've got a bit more energy. Brill. That's what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a bit the same like you. I wouldn't call myself a cyclist. I've got a watt bike, so I was on that this morning actually before breakfast, and I've got a mountain bike, and I suppose harking back in memories to my first bike, rally BMX burner, and I wanted a chopper or a grift or something with gears to make it easier. I had the bottom of the range rally burner that was heavy as hell to do any tricks on, but I had the mushroom grips, and anyway, I won't go into mag wheels. That'll take us down a rabbit hole.
That's a whole world of memories.
Okay, well let's talk about the business then. So that's good background, that Will. So they say you make your own luck in business as you do in life, and so it was in how you came to end up working at Brompton. Can you tell the listeners about a bit about the company, but also about that chance meeting on the bus with the then chairman Tim Guinness, and how you chose this route of business as opposed to business school and doing your MBA?
Well, I left uni. I did always think I wanted to make my mistakes with somebody else's money. That was a conscious decision. So I wanted to work for a big company and learn, but I never felt that's where I wanted to go. And I had a brilliant time making plenty of mistakes running chemical plants up in Middlesbrough. But I wanted to have the skills to try and do something myself or work in a smaller business where you can really, really contribute. Hence, thinking an MBA might make sense for me. But my career had been a bit normal, and they like to see a bit more entrepreneurial, quirky spirit. But still, I was studying for my GMAT. I was visiting London. I was on a bus and literally sat next door to this bloke who was quite old school, quite city, and got chatting. And we got onto the fact that I was an engineer. He said, one of my friends is an engineer. He makes these bikes. Oh, my God, they're amazing. And before you know it, he's saying, he needs some help from you, because I told him I was an engineer. You should meet him. You should. I'm like, bloody hell. Never seen the bike before. Never heard of it. There weren't any in Middlesbrough. And that's where you make your own luck. Ordinarily, you would just go, weird bloke, bus. Yeah, just put it down to interesting conversation, maybe tell a few friends in the pub. And I thought, no, I'm actually going to contact him. And it was only email in those days. And then reorganize 3 months later to get a train all the way down to London, meet this random person who made these bikes I never heard of. And that's what I mean by opportunities float past us all the time. All of us, doesn't matter who you are. It's whether you want to get out there and grab them. And it might be prickly and it might hurt, but you've got to do something to make things happen. And it might have come to nothing. And I didn't take the job thinking I was going to still be there in 25 years, whatever it is. I took the job because I thought, well, it's in London. All the cool people are in London. It'll be a laugh. Bikes, eccentric inventor. Do a couple of years of that, and then I'll go and do my MBA because it looked great on my CV. And I had nothing to lose. Yeah. So I thought, bugger it, I'll do it. And then I grew to love it, and it got under my skin, and I'm still here today. But in no way did I think that's where I'd end up when I went for the interview and took the job.
Yeah. And for all those listeners out there, I'm sure you know it, but it's the bikes that we're talking about here are these instantly recognizable ones, the ingeniously designed folding bikes that you see everywhere in cities these days, aren't they?
It is the Brompton that was invented by Andrew, who I then met. And he was the classic, somewhere between Back to the Future and A Beautiful Mind. You take those guys and munch them up, and out pops Andrew, and nonconformist, highly intellectual, wasn't going to just follow the crowd, and against all the odds, and it really was against the odds. Classic 13-year sort of litany of knockbacks, and you're never going to make it, it's not going to work, and he's stuck at it, and it got going. And by the time I arrived, he'd done all the hard work. I mean, 20 years of brutal dragging this thing against the grain, but he believed in it, and he was getting going, and he was doing amazing things, but he couldn't make enough bikes, and not enough people knew about it. And I got involved and helped unlock the potential.
Yeah. And those traits that you just describe, Andrew, with there, the positivity, the resilience, you really do need that as an entrepreneur, especially in those early years, with the knockbacks and I suppose the vision, but the love for what he was doing there. What I didn't realize was that, I know folding bikes aren't new, but I when I was again doing homework for the podcast, I read articles about how they were made for the troops to nip around the front lines in both the First and Second World Wars.
Absolutely. They're bloody handy things. People jumping out of aeroplanes with them straps onto their front with their Bergen on the back and the parachute at the top.
Yeah. It's and of course, they've got smaller wheels than the normal bikes, but it's not the first time we've seen that. Penny farthings have had tiny little wheels. So yeah, no, it's as I say, it's an ingenious design. So you stepped into the role of CEO in 2008. You took over from Andrew Ritchie then, and what did it feel like to inherit not just a business, but it is this cultural icon, and balancing legacy with driving the business innovation forward? Was that difficult?
So when I joined, there were just under 30 of us doing about 1.7 million turnover. That was in 2002. So there was no brand. There was no legacy. No one had ever heard of us. I'm 6'4". I'm riding a Brompton with little wheels, and people thought it was a joke because they didn't understand how spectacularly cool and useful this thing was. So I wasn't even bothered. I was just trying to make the thing better. And I'm not a city guy. I was brought up in Yorkshire, where there was lots of space. Cities for me were a bit intimidating, going under the ground, shoved in a metal tube with a load of other people you don't know, and claustrophobic in many respects because it's so big, you get lost. But the amazing thing about a bike, particularly in a city, is it gives you this freedom, and you don't mind getting lost. You just go and explore. Oh, I haven't been down that route. Oh, let's see. Oh, cool little cafe. Oh, yeah. Nick cut through. Oh, there's a canal. So you start loving the city. This bike changed my life. So in those early years, there was so much to get better. There was so much to do. And I'm an engineer, so we were involved in lean manufacturing, optimizing workflow, restructuring how we paid people, trying to do some quite cool innovation. And the reason I became CEO is because I just knew there was more I could do for this business. And Andrew is an incredible inventor, but he was such a control, freak in many respects. He couldn't grow the business because he's trying to control everything.
Yeah.
And that won't allow it to fulfill its potential. So I wasn't thinking of legacy, I was just thinking, if I'm running it, I can have a bigger impact. I can do cooler stuff. We can make this business and bring it to more people.
Yeah. I know from being a founder of a company, then selling it, it's difficult to let go. It's your baby, isn't it? And especially once you lose control. I'm sure it was hard for Andrew to pass over the reins initially.
It was very challenging indeed, because he had at the time, there were quite a lot of his mates from uni were shareholders. So he owned about 60%. His mates owned about 40%. A few staff had shares, which was pretty pioneering, actually. And we took that and expanded it. But he was going to give up that control. But that was critical, because I said to him, Andrew, we can't do this. I can't take over, because I'd sort of been running the company since about 2006 in reality. And I said to Andrew, I can't take over running it if you still control it, because it will just be a joke, because I have to do things you won't like. I'm going to care for it, but I will do things that you don't like. And you're going to have to trust me that I'm going to completely screw it up. but give me the freedom to make those choices. And it wasn't like it went from him owning it and controlling it to me owning it and controlling it, because when he let go of his control, I was the second largest shareholder, but nobody had control. So we were a team. We had to decide as a team what we were going to do and make those decisions as a team, but nobody could just be, right over the top and tell us, you have to do this, which was good. And it's been a good environment for a business. Whenever the team are frustrated or worried, I say, listen, guys, it's up to us. We're sitting here in the room. We make a success of it, pat yourself on the back. We fuck it up, we've only got ourselves to blame. So you don't look for anyone else. It's in the room. It's us. And we need to step up and get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. The global cycling trend, it just seems to have exploded everywhere in recent years, and as well as the folding bike market, of course. Why do you think Brompton continues to resonate with urban commuters, adventure seekers alike, and what do you think makes Brompton stand out from the competition?
It's so funny, and you only have to think about things you own. And actually, forget the trendy, YouTube videos or Instagram posts, and forget the cool collaborations and all of that fluffy stuff. The stuff you really, really love. You love it because it works. It's bloody good. Doesn't matter if it's a jacket, if it's a bike, if it's some shoes, whatever it is. If it delivers value, if it makes your life better, if it lasts, if it does go wrong, somebody's there to look after you. So actually, to be good, you don't have to be amazing. You have to be better than everyone else. And I think a lot of businesses are so busy telling you how brilliant they are, they're forgetting to be brilliant. They're just making all this guff. Whereas we are a bunch of people who are obsessed about making a bloody good and useful bike.
Yeah.
We have bikes that are 25 years old and we're still looking after them. We've got all the spare parts. And there aren't many things today. I mean, you can buy a Brompton for the cost of this thing. And I can tell you in 20 years' time, God knows where this phone will be, but it won't be being used by me or anyone else, I suspect. So I think that's what we focus on more than anything else. And when we sell a product, it's the beginning of a 20 to 30 year journey. Funnily enough, I just picked this bike up from one of our customers yesterday, and I haven't got the number. Actually, I don't even know what the number is because it only arrived. Let me have a quick look. Very quick look, because it's on the hinges. I don't know which number it is. This is a first. If I can get the damn thing up. Hold on.
For all you listeners on the podcast, this is why you need to watch on the YouTube channel too, because
it's number 680. That
wow.
bike. We're currently doing number 1.2 million.
Wow.
And that bike came from a customer who was using it. It was made in 1980. And that's very cool.
Yeah, really cool. Really
we
cool.
Need, if we're going to coexist on planet Earth, we need to be thinking a little bit more like that. Let's buy less stuff, but better stuff, better quality, good stuff that lasts.
My previous guest before you, Will, was Mark Ritson, and we were talking about marketing, and like you say, talking about all that fluff, and especially people get obsessed around when you're thinking of building a business and the 4 Ps framework, all around that promotion side of things, and first and foremost, get your product right, and if you build a quality product, then obviously you need the distribution, you need the right price, you need the promotion, but it fails or stands to deliver based on that good quality product.
And if you really obsess about what you're delivering to the customer and their experience for the entire life of the product, they will do your marketing for you.
Yeah.
Because they're so shocked. The average consumer, their expectations quite low because they've been burnt so many times with over-promised, it's going to be amazing, and it just isn't. So when you're not shit, they're like, wow, these guys are good. Wow, you won't believe it. They were great. I had a problem. They looked after me. I've had this thing 10 years. I love it. And so it's not that difficult to outperform the competition. Just be good
Yeah.
and reliable and consistent, and don't spout untruths.
Yeah. I was sat having my breakfast this morning, and I was just doing some googling and around Brompton, of course, ahead of this conversation. And my uncle, who's now in his 80s, and he's called Andrew Hague. He was a former manufacturer of bicycle parts and a keen
Wow.
cyclist. He's cycled all over the world, but really bizarrely, just this morning, as I was googling, this came up, and it was about Brompton. And he'd written this blog post. It must have been years and years ago.
Oh
Looking
my
at it.
God.
I need to read this out to you because it is brilliant. He says, "For me, this is the most satisfying bike I've ever ridden, and the pressure on Brompton to increase output to meet demand shows that I'm not the only cyclist impressed by this bike. The machine is more than a good bike. It is a market phenomenon. It has opened up a market where one did not previously exist, and I feel deserves a chapter or more in MBA textbooks." He goes on to say, "The Brompton also holds the answer to the problems of traffic congestion, poor health and pollution, but the politicians don't yet understand any of this. One day, cars will be
What a
made without..."
legend.
He says, "One day, cars will be made without ashtrays, and there will be 2 Bromptons in every boot so that the occupants can ride into the traffic-free town from the compulsory out-of-town car park." I mean,
That's where we're trying to head. So I came in this morning in my car, ditched it 12 kilometers from work, and whizzed in, and I feel great. And it's funny, for 50, 60, 70 years, the city, which is where most of us live, or the town, has not been designed around the human being.
yeah,
We were secondary. It's been designed around the automobile. That's been given more space, more priority. And it takes up precious space, which is at a premium in a city. It pollutes the air, which is not good for those that live in the city. And the irony of it all is that the average speed of the automobile in a car is slower than a bicycle. So it's like we had the solution in the 50s, and we decided, because we were hoodwinked, to give it up, because everyone was on the bike in the 50s. They weren't wearing lycra. They were wearing bloody cool hats and caps, and they were wearing bloody cool trousers and jackets, and they were whizzing about getting to work. And they were all fit, healthy, happy. They weren't all fit, healthy, and happy. That's an exaggeration, but it certainly helped in that regard. And I think if you look at not just the UK, but cities, countries all over the world, their 2 biggest risks on planet Earth at the moment. One is climate change, and coming quick in behind is health, the health of citizens. The health outcomes are going down the Swanee, and we can't afford to pay for them. We keep trying to fix it by fixing the problem at the end with the NHS. We haven't got enough money. You just didn't give me enough tax to pay for all that. We've got to get people fitter in how they live. And the way we do that is design an environment that makes it really attractive to be walking more, to be cycling more. When you've got lovely streets with lovely safe cycle lanes, when you've got lovely places to walk, people walk.
yeah.
But when it's a dump and the cycling looks unfriendly and the pavement's all cracked, you think, I'm going to take the bus or jump on the tube. So we've got to rethink our cities. So our mission isn't to make bicycles, it's to create urban freedom for happier lives. That's our purpose. The bike just helps us get there.
Well, tied in with that, Will, this responsible capitalism, how do you align profitability with purpose in this era where consumers are increasingly expecting brands to take a stand on social environmental issues?
It's so bloody easy. Our purpose is what we're here for. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get out of bed to make a shareholder rich. Imagine if you said that to your staff. Oh, can you come and join me so the shareholders can get rich? If you don't mind, I think I'll go and work somewhere else. But if we don't make a profit, we can't innovate. We can't even grow because you need capital to grow. We can't communicate to people who don't even know we exist because they might love this product, but if they don't know we exist, how can they even consider it? So profit is a means to an end, but it is not the means to the end. And I think that's the difference. Our purpose is to have an impact on society. And, when we built our millionth bike, I felt really as if I could be a bit more loud and say, you know what? We are doing some cool stuff and there's more to come. And we're now at 1.2 million. You go to London, you will see our bike. You go to Barcelona, you'll see our bike. You go to Shanghai, you'll see our bike. It's having an impact, and that makes you proud, all of us proud. And I think in business, we have a responsibility to give back. If all we care about is ourselves, we don't care about society or the planet that we live on, we're screwed.
Yeah, yeah. Very similar message that Douglas Lamont, CEO of Tony's Chocolate Only, said. Tony's Chocolate created that the mission was to end exploitation in the cocoa industry, but but obviously profit. They need that in order to continue going. But paying those farmers a living income, long-term partnerships, investing in cooperatives. It's easy to do when that purpose is core to what you get out of bed for in the morning.
And it's not, it's not easy. So, for example, we're doing some incredible stuff with aluminium and carbon neutral metals, carbon zero metals, and it is really awesome. And we as a company want to just change everything, and we want everything change it to this new stuff. The consumer isn't ready yet.
Yeah.
If we did that, it'd be too expensive. They can't afford it. And whenever you have new technology, it's always very expensive to start with. So we have to balance that ambition to change the world and do everything brilliantly with being commercial. And you've got to work with your community and with your consumer. And you've got to keep these new technologies alive by supporting them and allowing them to become more efficient until they become mainstream. So it isn't, if we were just so purist about purpose, we'd wander around and we wouldn't exist in a year.
Yeah.
Because we'd be so pure that no one's going to, buy it. You're competing against, people's challenged, we haven't got as much money as we thought. We're getting taxed more. You've got to justify that you're bloody good value whilst you're delivering this purpose. And that's hard, but it's absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Tied to the previous question, your bikes, they're famously over-engineered. We've just talked about, that one that was made in the 80s that's just come back to you there. So, built to last, but in this world that's driven by, disposable fast fashion, how do you convince investors that this is the right thing to do in terms of spending your money there, as opposed to, maybe looking for cheaper manufacturing methods in order to push the profit envelope?
So it just comes back to the same thing. If you like, our investors are our customers because they're investing in a Brompton. You can buy something cheaper, but it just doesn't last as long and it isn't such a delight. So you need to decide, do you want to spend once and spend well? Or do you want to buy something, be disappointed, spend 3 years getting hacked off, then something breaks, and then you end up buying another one and another one? It's a false economy. But it's quite tricky for us to tell that story. Because if we tell that story, I was going to go, well, of course you're going to say that. I mean, that's why a brand is trust. It's not logos, like we were saying. It's not the fluff. The brand is trust. And that trust, we have 1.2 million Bromptons out there. That's like 1 million customers that own a Brompton. So they are telling our story. It's not for us to do it. We work to look after them, and then they give us credibility. And that credibility is the brand. It's not just luck that you have a brand. It's because for 50 years, we haven't let the customer down. We're not perfect. We screw up. We make mistakes. But by and large, we genuinely care. Yeah. And if we do that and we continue to do that, they will answer the questions that you just gave to me. Is it worth it? Speak to a Brompton customer. And I think I'd be confident that the 99.9%, me included, would say absolutely, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so refreshing to hear that, actually, Will, because, in this disposable world we now live in, it's maybe my parents are also from Yorkshire, so maybe it's this bringing up that I had this and this, to be frugal with what we've got, that was drummed into me from an early age. My wife still laughs at me when I eat out of date food from the fridge. Just
I'm in the same boat.
It away.
Oh my God! But the other thing is, I've got stuff at home that came from my grandparents, furniture. And I've got a clock that winds up. I've got this stuff. It can be repaired. But then the interesting thing is, it has more value because you think, wow, this belonged to my grandparents and I'm still using it, sitting on it. putting stuff on it, walking past it and getting value out of it. So actually, if we're looking at true value, things that you've owned for a long time, you have a leather jacket you've had for 25 years, you freaking love it.
Yeah.
You've been on adventures together. You've got history. You remember when you were, I don't know, 22 and you had an amazing festival and you were wearing that jacket. This is real. This delivers more value. So this sort of fashion for fashion's sake is pretty thin. It's not
Yeah.
good for the planet, and I don't think it's even good for us, the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Manufacturing in the UK is dying, but you're definitely a shining light for this sector, as Brompton's known for its vertically integrated manufacturing in London, bucking this trend of offshoring. Was there ever? I'm sure there was some pressure to move production overseas. How have you dealt with that pressure?
So, funnily enough, we could have moved about 8 years ago to Wales, and actually we'd have been paid to go there. Instead, we moved somewhere where we paid to move somewhere else in London. So it's like one thing we're in the UK, and then it's even, you could argue, even more potty that we're in London. The reason we didn't move is because today, I mean, I don't know, 40–50% of our staff come on our bikes, not because we're telling them to, because they're useful, because, they live in a flat. And actually, by the time you pay for the bus or the tube or the line bike, it's expensive. It tots up. So you can have a bike you can fold up and you can whiz to work. And if it really is pissing with rain and you can't be asked, then fold the damn thing up and get on the bus. It's fine. But most of the time, actually, it's great. The fact that so many of our staff live and breathe the product, our designers, our guys who are brazing, making the bikes, there is this sense of respect for the product. We end up making our bikes in the glorious hills, in an industrial estate outside of Cardiff. That would be grand, and it would be very good value, but nobody needs to use a Brompton to go to an industrial estate in the hills outside Cardiff.
Yeah.
So then eventually you'd find that less and less people have a connection with the product. And we are an urban brand and an urban product. So the fact that we are urban in how we make it, we are literally sucking up that insight every day, every one of us, because we use the bike so much. And I think that's important. And the interesting thing is the labor cost in the direct cost of our bike is actually less than 15%. The rest of it is materials. Those materials would cost the same if we were making it in Indonesia or if we make it in Mexico, because the logistics costs are so low. So it's only the labor bit. And actually, 15%, we can probably get that down to close to 10. At which point, what are you going to save on the grand scheme of things? Very little. So, we're in it for the long term. We are making stuff in the UK, but we're not making all of it. There's lots we don't make. All the bits we do, the frame, the wheels, the painting, because they've got IP know-how, and it really affects the customer experience. If we're talking about, laser cutting a bit of tube, anyone can do that. Let someone else do that. But when it affects your experience, we'll hold on to that and care for it and nurture it and make sure that bit that really affects your experience, we look after that bit.
Yeah, yeah. Talking of overseas, I don't know whether I'm right in thinking, do you export 75% of all bikes you produce these days?
Bit more.
Okay.
More than that. So we're over 80 at the moment.
And this global expansion goes to, well, you've mentioned some of the markets, and of course US and Asia, but I know cycling culture and urban infrastructure is very different over there than it is in the UK. Is that pose a problem when you're looking to export or introduce them to the Brompton?
So the place to start, if you stand right back, there are knocking on the door 10 billion people living on planet Earth. And you could probably say about 4 billion of them it's within reach that they could buy one of our bikes. And if the thing lasts for 20 years, if it saves time, means you don't need to go to the gym, you can afford to buy it over many months and save money. So it is affordable. It might be expensive, just like these phones, but these are not luxury items. They are items that are so useful, people are prepared to invest in them. And the Brompton falls into that category. So if you think there's a market potential of 3 or 4 billion, and you're only interested in 60 million that live in the UK, you've got to be a nutcase, because it's not like there aren't many cities are different. And I've had the privilege of traveling and cycling around a lot in the world. So these cities are different, but they're more similar than they are different. They're challenges of congestion, of health, of, getting from A to B, of getting to know your city. All of those challenges are very, very similar. And the nuance of how they address it is slightly different. But this bike is so flexible that it absorbs itself into the city. So from a very early stage, we decided we were going global. We weren't going to settle with just the UK. And in some respects, our customers did that for us, because many people came to London, worked here for 2 or 3 years, bought a Brompton, and then they took it back to the Netherlands, or they took it to Hong Kong, or they went back to Japan. And then they were like, well, who can look after my bike? I'm now back in Japan. And then they said, I've got a friend of mine who's got a bike shop. He wants to buy a few. This is how it started. But you're right, the infrastructure challenge is a challenge, but it's happening all over the world. Increasingly, cities are realizing they've got to get people more active. So cycle lanes, and helped by the pandemic, have grown. Doesn't matter whether you're in Mexico City, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Shenzhen, Taipei, there is continuous momentum in investing in cycle lanes. It's the most efficient mode of transport ever invented. It takes your pulse rate to a level where it has a net benefit, which is pretty much better than any other form of exercise if it's done on a regular 20, 30 minutes a day. So governments can see this, and the cost of the infrastructure is low. So we see that momentum and that change. And our biggest market now is China. And in the 20 years I've been going to China, the speed at which they have invested in cycling infrastructure, and I mean beautiful cycling infrastructure, is breathtaking.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, well, it shows, doesn't it, how the brand has travelled. You've got your flagship stores, the Brompton Junction stores, all
Yes.
over the world: Beijing, Tokyo, Shanghai, Amsterdam, and of course here at home in London as well. So yeah, you've also expanded into electric bikes, the Brompton Electric, explored urban mobility solutions like the bike hire schemes.
Yeah.
What strategic thinking went into deciding which innovations to pursue and which to avoid, just so you do stay true to what the brand's about?
It's so funny, because people think businesses have some mega strategic sort of, mega brain and unbelievable sophisticated process of strategic thinking. In reality, we're customers, and we want to bring this to more people. How the bloody hell are we going to do it? We're passionate. And so we're trying to find ways to bring more people to have the fun we're having. And one of the problems is, from bike hire perspective, you look at the bike and you're like, what is that? What is that? Is that a wheelchair? So, no, it's a bicycle. And you unfold it. Bloody hell, that looks a bit dodgy. You might collapse on it. What, those little wheels? Are they really? So it's not like a Lamborghini where you look at it and go, bloody hell, that thing must go fast and it must be expensive. Brompton tells you everything it's not. But when you ride it, when you experience it, when it becomes part of your life, you freaking love it. So how do we find a way to reduce the barrier to entry? And it's no good picking one up at the shop, doing a quick whiz around the car park. That's not enough to decide if you're going to spend £1,000 or even 1,500 quid on a bike. You need to take it home, shove it in the back of the car, fold it up once or twice, shove it by the front door, and then you go, oh my God, I get it. This thing's awesome. So Bike Car was all about finding a way to allow somebody at a low cost to experience the bike, take it for a week or two, and really experience it in your life. And it's been tough and it's been difficult. And my God, in many respects, we should never have done it. We don't really make much money out of it, but we love it. And it gets more people trying bicycling. And they might go on to not buy a Brompton, but they might go to become a cyclist. So happy days. At least it's now not losing money. Yippee. And then electric, again, baptism of fricking fire, because we're a metal basher. We know about metal and bending and, and martensitic and all these different, crystalline structures when you heat metal. We didn't know anything about motors. Luckily, again, one of our customers who became a great friend, is a chap called Patrick Head. And he ran Williams F1 for a long time. Big Brompton fan. Used to fly in his chopper to Battersea and get his Brompton out and whiz off to his meetings. And I met him and he said, Will, what are you doing about electric? you should be doing electric bikes. And he got me thinking. We then started exploring nearly impossible. The technology didn't exist. They were just big, heavy electric motors, no good for us. So I tried. And eventually I came back to him. I said, Patrick, I'm getting nowhere. We tried with these guys in Asia. They were no good. He said, well, we can probably help. We do have electric motors in our F1 cars, and they're very light. And we've got some good engineers. We have something called Williams Advanced Engineering. Maybe we can help. And so we ended up getting some government funding, and we did a research project 3 years with WAE, and we took the technology out of the F1 car to make super powerful, super light, super efficient motors, shrunk it, and shoved it into a Brompton.
Wow.
And the funny thing was, all those engineers like, oh, yes, easy, bicycle, easy. Yeah, we do Formula One. I tell you, they lost money on us because it was so bloody difficult. But and then even when we did get there, we didn't really know what we were doing. We thought we knew what we were doing, and then you start making 5,000 of them, and you're like, oh my God, now we're really learning. And that was 10 years ago. We now are hot at this, and it's so exciting. And we've launched our large bike, and it's just, and the potential now that we really understand what we're doing. We design our own circuit boards. We all the software is our own in-house software. We can see what's possible, and we're delivering a product that's so much fun. It's awesome. It's very exciting.
Oh, it sounds like that. Well, there's a lot that's gone behind it, hasn't it, to bring it to market? So, so that does sound very exciting.
Correct.
I was recently in Porto on a business trip, and like most cities these days, you can jump on a motorized bike or scooter to get around. So me and my other two business colleagues, we scooted around Porto on these scooters and bikes.
It's quite hilly. You need some electric
assist. You do actually, but the cobbled streets don't make good for scooting. No. It's like a bone shaker there. So I always went for the bike. But it was raining one evening, and so we did jump in an Uber, and we're talking about mobility around an urban situation here. Do you have any solutions around rain protection or wet weather riding? Because that definitely changed our mind to go Uber as opposed to on the bike or the scooter then.
So you need to take it in stages. It's like everything else, anything you do in life. When you start, if you start jogging, everything aches and it's difficult, and you look out the door and you're like, oh, I don't like the look of that. Anything you do in life, whether you're starting to learn about electric motors, it hurts to start with, and your confidence is low. So initially, we need to just get people onto the bike. Even if they just take it to the park, fold it up, take a bus, take the tube, go to the park, feel confident, pedal around the park, get back into your cycling. Then maybe you can take a little route where it's a nice segregated cycleway and you can feel confident. It's the same with the weather. The number of days when it is properly soaking, I reckon about 4 or 5 a year, where I'm not able, or if I do turn up, I look like a drowned rat. It's so rare.
Yeah.
But as you become more confident, so I have my pannier here, which is what I came in on. So in here, I've got my rain jacket, my raincoat. In here, I've got my rain legs. But I'm wearing my shirt. I'm going to meetings. I'm doing business, and I've got everything I need in my bag. But so initially, don't worry about that. Just do it in the nice weather, and then you become more confident, and then you get the right kit, and then you don't even think about it. It doesn't even cross my mind.
Yeah. Although you've been living down south for too long, Will, because remember I'm from Manchester.
Well, I know. Well, I went to uni in Newcastle, and I was on my bike there, and it's a little bit wetter up there. But again, they're a bit tougher. They're a bit tougher up north, so a few drops of rain isn't going to hurt anyone.
So you've achieved impressive growth over the years. I think it's something like 20% compound growth. And from that experience running a business, I know it's never a straight line in terms of that trajectory. But you share some fabulous stories in your book, The Brompton, which is behind me on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Talk about product placement.
A great read. But what moment stands out? You, as I say, you mentioned a few in there. But what moment stands out to you where the company faced either a major operational or financial crisis, and the lesson that you took from overcoming that challenge?
So we have had a lot. People see black, or white. But business isn't black or white. It's just complete ups and downs, wins and losses. And as you distill them out each year, you've either grown or you haven't. But it's a sort of compilation of all the wins and the failures. But there are failures every day and there are wins every day. And you've got to hope with your team and with your plan, you get more wins than failures. I had to do a recall on 166,000 bikes. I nearly had a fine from America for 10 million quid. There are so many situations we have had that have been very, very scary. And in other areas of our business and for all of our staff, they have moments in their role that are scary, that are worrisome. And I really try hard to get my team not to take the business too seriously. And half of the problem I find is people take it too seriously. And once you get into that state of mind, you start making bad decisions because you're very afraid. And we are bloody lucky. We're living in paradise. We are all spoilt, certainly if we're living in the UK by and large. There are things and there are people on planet Earth who are going through some very, very difficult times. So reminding yourself and putting your job, what you're doing, we're making bicycles, into perspective. The people here care deeply about what we're trying to achieve, but that can be a weakness because they care too much. So keeping perspective is the number one. And whenever I'm really, really in trouble, I actually take a step back. And you can overcorrect and oversteer when things start going wrong. So actually, when things are really difficult, you're better to let go of the controls and observe and just calm down. Because actually, the company can steer itself. There are lots of capable people. Get your breath back, calm down, and then move back in when you're ready to be sensible. But the biggest problem is overthinking and oversteering your business when it's in real challenging period.
Yeah. Very, very wise words there. If you were starting Brompton today, what would you do differently given what you know now and obviously these shifts that we're seeing, technology, sustainability concerns, consumer behaviour?
I was pretty bold, but I would have been bolder still.
Right.
And I have taken, when I did a sort of management buyout, I have everything I've got on the line. So I'm still, if Brompton went down, that'd be curtains for me. So I'm leveraged to the hilt. And it gives you a little bit of get up and go in the morning. And there were times when I wanted to be more ambitious. And I thought I was being quite ambitious, but I was reticent. And I had a great FD at the time, Lorne, who's still a good friend. And, we thought we couldn't be more ambitious, but the younger that you are, the more mad you can be. You've got so little to lose. And as you get older, it gets harder because your liabilities, your children, everything else changes. So my only advice to myself would be, fuck it, go for it. Be more radical, take more risk, just pile in. Because the worst that'll happen, you go bust, you start all over again. Who cares? Get on with it.
Yeah. You come with nothing, you leave this world with nothing, you know?
Get on with it. Impact, do cool stuff.
Yeah. Fully endorse that. And just finally, turning to the future, what exciting projects or innovations are on the horizon for Brompton, and where do you see it heading in the next 10 to 15 years?
So we have seen, when I joined Brompton, the drawings were all done by pencil on tracing paper by Andrew. We were just getting into 2D CAD. The idea of 3D printing, AI, modeling, finite element analysis, it just not thinkable. So we had tracing paper, drawings. When we wanted to make a model, we used to get laminate wood, stick it together, chop it up, and file it. Now we design in 3D, we press a button, and it's printed in plastic, metal, whatever we want. You start adding AI into the mix, which optimizes design, which goes out and you can feed it information, it can process it and allow you. So we do something called finite element analysis, which was like that, but this is putting that on steroids. So all we want to do is make more useful products. And the technology and the opportunity we have to deliver something that's even more useful, I can see being greater and greater.
Yeah.
So we are beginning to unlock things that were not thinkable 5 years ago. And that is really exciting. And it will allow us to make even cooler, more useful products. And we've got some stuff we're testing at the moment, first full bike tests. And it's like, whoa, so cool.
Well, I know when I put it out there to ask you a question, I got bombarded. Brompton don't have customers. I think they have fans or advocates. These people are really bought into the brand. In fact, I'm going to get onto a couple of those just as we finish off. But
yes,
one person or one question that came in over the weekend was around, the future innovations. So make sure you can ask Will this, so I'll crowbar it in at this stage. Yeah. So do you see, he asked, do you see weight or volume bulkiness of the bike when folded as the biggest inhibitor of future sales?
Weight, not volume. We've got it small enough.
Yeah.
It's weight. It's all about weight. And then you start combining that with electric. So when we made our electric bikes, we just launched a new electric, and it is taken a real step forward in terms of performance, both weight and performance. When we had our first electric, it's just too heavy.
Yeah.
And, if you're making a truly portable bike, it's got to be under a certain weight. And that technology combined with, like I said, AI, we're getting close to producing something that's off the flipping chart. It's so exciting. A few years off, but that's what we do. We're obsessed with engineering, and we want to sniff about and find technology, materials, science, ways to keep making something better. And to be honest, that's something we haven't talked about, but it's super important. If you back a brand like Brompton, those profits are delivering the next generation of innovation.
Mm.
And we need profit to take risk on innovation, because some of our innovation comes to nothing. If you're not failing in innovation, you're not trying hard enough. But if you're going to back a brand, it's one that's going to come up with the new ideas, change the way we look at the world, and use that profit to continue to push the boundaries of what's possible. And we're certainly doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exciting times. Looking forward to seeing where that goes, Will. So to finish, I have my usual questions I ask all my guests. Firstly is a question from my last guest, Mark Ritson, the world famous marketing professor with his online mini MBA courses.
Oh, Lord.
So Mark asks, how important is it to manufacture the product in the UK, or is it more important to be competitive and consistent to the brand in having it manufactured elsewhere?
I don't care where we manufacture it. But the reason we manufacture it in the UK, because it delivers to the experience of the customer. So I haven't got a, obsessive requirement to make it in the UK. But like we were saying earlier, the reason we make it in London, because London, the city, delivers value to us, the users, the staff, and then that affects how we design, optimize, and make the product. So it's all about the end user experience. But we're not making the UK because we're sort of rah British. We're doing it because this is where we're born, this is where we built our skills, and actually London has given us this bike. It's through our staff who live here that it is developed, innovated, and continued to be a success. And that is a lot to do with where we make it. It's contributed to our success.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I say, you don't just have customers. I have been inundated with questions, but I've only been able to choose two. So a couple of questions from the listeners. Firstly, from James Warren in London, what's one piece of counterintuitive advice you'd give to entrepreneurs, something that goes against conventional startup wisdom?
I really think, and maybe this isn't counterintuitive, but I do think you need to be modest. There's just too much of this culture of, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm special, yeah, I'm going to be a unicorn, I'm like, Fandango. You need to have inner confidence, but you need to be modest and patient. Those two factors. Warren Buffett, I read a book called Buffettology when I was at university. And, if you really believe in something, focus on your customer. Don't start swagging around telling everyone how brilliant you are and you're an entrepreneur and all this. Just let the customer do the work for you. Let them help your business grow. Let 5 years go by, and then you can say, well, I'm not doing too badly. And then people tap you on the back and say, well, you've done well, but be modest. And if you're focusing on your business and you're mostly interested in your customer rather than yourself, and you're the amazing entrepreneur, you're more likely to succeed.
Yeah. 100% agree on that. We've gone influencer mad in terms of on socials. Just keep it to the product and head down and do what you love, and it'll reap the rewards.
Yes.
Secondly is from Dan Ryan in Washington, D.C., and he asks, he says, the Brompton is my dream bike. Have you ever thought about creating folding helmets?
So, no, but there are plenty of folding helmets out there. So, well, we've thought about helmets. We've thought about so many things. I mean, children's bikes. If you name it, we thought about it. So in our world, there is so much opportunity. We could be doing folding helmets and we can make money out of them. We could be doing children's bikes. We make money out of it. We could be doing this and make money out of this But what happens is you cannot do everything. And we're not doing things right in front of us well enough today. So you have to, when you're in business, ignore opportunity. And sometimes you have to ignore problems. You have to focus on the biggest opportunity and the number one priority issue for your business. And you've got to be able to walk past all the noise and get to the crux of the issue, whether that's focusing on where your investments are going to be, where the performance is going to be, and where you're going to really drive the growth of the business, whether that's prioritizing where you invest your money to fix the really important issues and let some of those other smaller issues go. Because if you try and run around fixing everything and jumping and grabbing at every opportunity, you'll do nothing.
Yeah.
So yes, we could, but that's not what we're brilliant at. And the stuff we're brilliant at, we are innovating and innovating and innovating, and that's where we'll add the biggest impact.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
I was given some wonderful advice from a chap called Andy Teague, who was my mentor when I went and worked for ICI up in Wilton, in Middlesbrough. And he said to me, Will, you'll never know what you want to do. But if you ever find yourself doing something you don't want to do, get the hell out. And it was bloody brilliant. And that's, I've just lived by that. And I think it's so important, particularly for our generation that are coming up there, because of social media, they're under this pressure to know what they want to be and be successful. And that's mostly crap. None of us know what we want to do or where we're going to go. But what you've got to do is grab the moment, live in the moment, give it everything you've got. And actually, if you're not having a blast, give it your best shot and move on. Yeah. Crack into something else, because there'll be something out there. And when you hit it, you're like, oh, here we go. This is awesome. And then you pile in.
Well, I think that's why you probably got out of ICI and why you've been with Brompton for so many years.
Well, exactly.
Who would you like me to reach out to and invite to come on this podcast in the future?
Crumbs. That is a very, very difficult question. I think, and it's giving you too hard a challenge. So, I don't know if you've spoken to John Vincent, if I'm keeping it relatively close.
No, I haven't.
So John, he founded Leon,
right,
which is the fast food company, and he founded it with a huge amount of sort of integrity and belief that it was going to deliver quality, well-sourced, sustainable, minimum waste products, but quality. And he did that, and of course then he was in a situation where he had to sell it. It has then not held its nerve, and it has not stood by many of those values. And he's now been asked to come back in again and pull it back up to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So his journey has been one of incredible highs, some really tough decisions, like you talk about letting go of the business he loved, and then seeing that business not fulfill its potential. And now he's stepped back in again. So I think his journey, he's a guy with real integrity. but his journey has been one which is just reminds everybody it isn't easy. You have to dust yourself down, and never give up.
Yeah. Well, I love those outlets, and I didn't realise John had left and would now come back in. But it is, yeah, that's a fantastic story, and so I will definitely might lean on you for an introduction.
I can make an intro.
Will, but no, definitely, I'd love to have him on the show.
Great stuff.
Finally, my next guest is David Acker. He's been called the father of modern branding by Philip Kotler, published hundreds of articles, 18 books, one of which Acheron branding on the shelf behind me. What question would you like to ask David?
So, how do you distinguish between truths and untruths, and a sort of ensure the integrity of a brand?
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm anti-brand, because to me, brand just encapsulates exaggerated untruths. I mean, look, our politics has just become brand. I mean, there's no integrity there. You just don't believe it. As soon as they open their mouth, you just don't believe what they're saying. And many brands have fallen into that trap. So for somebody who is promoting brands, how do they ensure and articulate, or what do they think of that? Because I still see way too much guff arriving in through my phone or in any other media, and it pains me, because I think we should just have a bit more honesty and truth.
Yeah. Although over time, the Brompton brand, as you say, over 50 years, you can create a brand by doing just the things that you love really, really well, and you've got one hell of a brand now. Will, thank you so much for joining me today. Truly fascinating conversation. It is clear that, with your leadership, Brompton isn't just about selling bicycles. It's about championing this smarter, more sustainable way of urban living, doing it with integrity, craftsmanship, real sense of purpose. What you've taken from Andrew, you've balanced heritage, but then moved it to the future with innovation, made bold bets on production, keeping it there in London. It's a masterclass of what you've done there in terms of building a business that not only lasts but has value. And in doing the research, as I mentioned, I've gone down so many rabbit holes when researching Brompton, which I've never ridden one, but I know all about the C line, A line, T line, P line now from doing the research, and it's going to be something on my Christmas list. So if people want to know about the company and the bikes, then of course it's brompton.com. Would you point listeners to anywhere else if they want information?
So I would start there and then find your local bike shop and go and jump on a bike. But if that is too much and that's too big a step, just you see some random punter with a Brompton, just go and ask them, what do they think of it? Get a feel for what this bike is. And if you don't need one, you shouldn't buy one.
Yeah.
But it's very useful, and it's amazing how useful it is. But gosh, I couldn't live without mine. I mean, I could bore you why, but it's just, I need the space, the mental space, the exercise, and I just love it. And I'm biased, but I love it.
Well, that comes through in spades. It really does, Will. That enthusiasm and passion for the bikes, for the company itself. So, the future is definitely bright at Brompton.
Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Will. It's been a fantastic conversation. So I know our listeners and viewers will love it. So thank you for your time.
Top draw. Thank you.
So there you have it. The story of Brompton Bicycles. So much I personally took out of this podcast. But I've just been making some notes. And I suppose the three key learnings for me were, number one, great companies, they're not built overnight. And it's about having a philosophy, knowing what you stand for and sticking to it, even when it's, there isn't the easiest pathway. Brompton, they make great, ingenious bicycles, but it's their mission that drives them forwards to create urban freedom for happier lives. Secondly, I think that said, the second key takeaway for me is the fact that it all starts with a great product that you have to believe in. It was interesting that Will said he didn't believe in branding, even though they've built this strong brand over the years. A brand, well, it lives and dies if your customers stop buying the product. So make sure you understand it and meet your customers' needs, and then use their loyalty as your greatest marketing asset, because a recommendation from a customer is way more powerful than some corporate blurb saying how good the bike actually is. And finally, third, I think what struck me today is how important it is to keep your fingers on the pulse of your financial figures so as to guide your business. Will talked about the fact that they've looked at manufacturing elsewhere in the world outside of Britain, but decided to keep it close to home because the numbers didn't really make that much sense, not that much of a saving. And also it allows them to keep a handle on the quality. However, you do need to have an open mind in terms of change, like they changed when they changed from craft production to assembly line production. But what's important is that they took that decision, the decision that was right for the customer. So the next time you're in a major city around the world and you see someone carrying a fold-up bicycle onto a bus, train or tram, I'd put money on it that it'll be a Brompton bicycle. Now you know the story behind this ingenious fold-up bike and the fact that it's not just a mode of transport. It's a way of life for these customers that can hopefully change the way we navigate our cities in the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode.